From beautiful East Tennessee, you are listening to the Sherry Voluntary Show, and I do appreciate you spending your time with me. And Daniel Blanchett, my producer extraordinaire.
Hello.
How are you, Daniel?
I'm doing all right. It's a pretty good day here in East Tennessee. I'm glad the weather finally broke.
Yeah, it's actually really nice. It's kind of cool. It's cool enough to have a jacket on, but it's not so cold that you're freezing, which I love that about fall. Like, that's my favorite. One of my favorite things.
That's my favorite right up until the point where it gets cold enough to start be freezing. This time it's your phone that's making noise, not mine.
Oh, I need to turn that down. All right. So today we were supposed to have Kyle Mann from the Babylon Bee on last night, and unfortunately he had to reschedule. So we're going to do this show together. And we're going to talk about two of our favorite subjects, which if you've ever watched the show, you'll know that
it's beer and playing cards.
I like those things too, but it's guns. And if we get to it, cops, which cops are really my pet subject more than, I mean, Daniel, it's his pet subject too, but he's more knows more about guns than I do.
Yeah. And so we're not really talking about guns. We're talking about the politics of the Second Amendment.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We're talking about sleazy Tennessee politicians today.
Right.
So,
anyway, so yeah, last night some local county commissions made some progress, we'll call it.
Progress, right? It's always progress. So which two counties was it? Jefferson
and Sevier.
Sevier, okay. So Jefferson and Sevier County. Sevier is, famous for Dolly Parton being from Sevier County. And
it's the Branson of the East.
Yeah, it really is. So they actually made themselves sanctuary counties, or
yes, the Second Amendment is the rule of law in two counties in East Tennessee now.
Yeah,
really? Machine guns and tanks and anything that you want to defend yourself with is perfectly okay.
And you don't have to have a license?
Nope, nothing.
Really?
That's what I would think they would mean when they say it's a Second Amendment sanctuary.
Right,
county.
But that's, as we know, that's not what they mean, right? What do they actually mean?
I would bet that what they really mean is that you only have to obey the laws they like.
Right. So basically what it is a big virtue signal. Is that what you're saying, Daniel?
Yes.
So they're signaling to everyone all over that we are going to support the Constitution, and they're trying to take us. I mean, I see it both ways. I see it as sort of a good thing that they're actually trying to say we would stand up to the feds.
Right. I mean,
but I don't know if I actually believe they would if the right pressure was applied on them. But it's at least them kind of saying there's something wrong here when the feds can come in and overthrow, our laws here in the state of Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, the part of me, I'm a giant supporter of the 10th Amendment Center. They're the only political organization I currently give money to.
Really effective.
Yes. So, so this is a great states taking control or counties.
States' rights type.
Yeah. It's nullification in action, which is awesome. But the whole we're defending the Second Amendment thing is kind of
it's like decreasing taxes without decreasing spending. Right. It's like cutting taxes without decreasing spending. It's for show. It's political theater. And what I think is mostly politicians want to be voted back in. And so in Tennessee, being pro, 2A is a big deal to get votes. So I think that that's part of, it's like the bravado that so many of the bubbas walk around with here about being American and being free.
And, if they actually were Second Amendment sanctuary counties, they would get every gun nut in the country would buy a cabin in Sevier County so that they could keep their machine gun collection.
Right. And that's certainly not what is the case in Tennessee. I mean, the gun laws here are probably not as strict as they are in, say, Massachusetts, but they still aren't like you have the Republicans here go, we're for common sense gun laws, right? And that like that
I have to go to the county and beg for permission to carry a handgun.
Exactly. I have to pay my money, and my money is good enough if they deem me okay. And so we also here in Tennessee, there aren't any red flag laws yet. but I believe
they
have been proposed.
Yeah.
Yes. And that wasn't an outright no when it happened. So it's on the table. So once you do that and you get on the table, and something that I almost called him Mance, Pete Quinones mentioned the other day when I was on his show, is that he thinks the red flag laws are actually to go after vets, which makes a lot of sense.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you've got a population that's disgruntled. They're unhappy with the government.
And trained.
And we taught them how to...
Right. And so you know, and when you can... He said one of the things that he had heard from someone who's in the know about these things was that when this man came home from being over there, wherever the over there was that he was at, they asked him if he had PTSD and if he owned guns. So... I mean, these are veterans who they've trained. They are indoctrinated. But, you know, as we know, so many vets come back and realize it's all bullshit. Like, even if they're not as vocal, even if they don't become libertarians or anarchists.
Well, I mean, so our immediately prior chair of the Tennessee Libertarian Party was a returned vet who came back and was really unhappy with the state of the government and the state of the world.
Right.
A lot of returning vets are peace activists because they know they may go in buying the
right, starry-eyed, but they don't come back that way.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that's a big point to be made, is that these red flag laws that they talk about, and I can't remember the guy's name. It was in my mind. Crenshaw. Is it Crenshaw, the guy with the eye patch?
Yes.
That was one of the things that I think I even posted on his Twitter about this because it was so ridiculous, was that, you know, he was saying when Republicans say common sense gun laws to you, it's not the same as a liberal saying common sense gun laws. Republicans want actual common sense gun laws. And I thought, you are such a friggin' joke. This guy is the kind of piece of crap that will go and fight and do all the things that soldiers do in the name of freedom that's not protecting any freedoms or whatever. Like, he's fully bought it, and now he's in the political class where he has power over other people, and he's going to start telling you what you can be armed for, but the government doesn't have that kind of oversight.
Right. So I just had an epiphany. I figured out what they mean when they say freedom. Freedom means
freedom
nothing
to obey.
left. No, freedom means nothing left to lose.
Ah, you're pulling some Janis Joplin.
Right. I mean, that's obviously what they mean. The Republicans are the party of freedom. They want you to have lost everything.
You know, Chris Christopherson wrote that song.
Oh.
Yeah. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, he's a
unique person. Anyways, that's a side note, but yeah, that is interesting. Freedom's nothing left to lose. I definitely think that their idea of freedom involves authority.
Yeah.
And that's really what you have to kill. I mean, that's why Larkin Rose's book, The Most Dangerous Superstition, is so wonderful, because in that, like, even if you've got it and you kind of know that authority is crap, it just lays it out so beautifully that it's really, once you see that, you can't go back to accepting that there's a legitimate authority over people's life that they don't voluntarily say is okay. So, you know, and I'm talking like unnatural authorities, not like your parents over children. That's a natural authority. That's just a biological fact of life. But even then, you know, I think parents have certain responsibilities to respect the rights of their children, and as they get responsible enough to give that back over to them. But yeah, I definitely think that their freedom involves the freedom to obey the authority that's set over you. And that is taking a lot of religious belief and mixing it. I mean, it's the Christostatist way. That's what they do. They actually, and this is how they worship the state, right? Because they've taken a biblical belief and mixed it with the state. And so therefore now the state has become sanctified. One of the things I was going to mention with Kyle on the show last night was one of my favorite Babylon Bee titles for this article was Jesus Christ tells world that he's gonna come back and burn all the flags too, and everything else. Like,
oh yeah.
So like I love that. I love how the Babylon Bee has taken that stance to sort of try and get the Christostatism out of Christianity and Christianity out of the government. There's a reason that those are supposed to be separate. And that's because, I mean, even Christians don't agree. I had some guy blocked today who's a real jerk, and I've actually met him in person. He's just a jerk. But that was upset with me because he was saying it was propaganda that I didn't want that Ken Ham pamphlet handed to my kids at Christmas, the one that tells them they're going to burn in hell, or at Halloween, not Christmas. That tells them they're going to burn in hell, and I've seen these pamphlets actually before. My when I lived in Colorado before I had children, my friend, I was at their house while we were trick or treating with their kids, and they were handed this, and their little girl was like looking at it because it looks like a little color, it looks like something to color or whatever. And it had a father who got possessed by demons and became an axe murderer and murdered the family because of Halloween. Now, I don't know if that was from Ken Ham, but it was a similar type thing, and it sounds like it's something he'd have.
Chick tracks.
Yeah. And they're terrible. Like, it frightened their daughter. And that was my point, was that it's not someone else's job to proselytize. And of course, they would be all up in arms if this were an LGBTQ activist handing out tracts at the door about, whatever, about being gay, being okay. That would set them on fire, and they couldn't stand it. But their comments to me were, I was calling them evil, which I never did, but I do think that's evil to try and supersede a parent's authority and proselytize their children.
That is why I'm giving out Skittles for to taste the rainbow.
Whose rainbow do you want to taste, Daniel?
Well, Mike from Mike and Friends, of course.
Of course. That's your bae.
Yeah, we've been dating for 2 years now.
That's true. You guys have been dating for 2 years. And you guys make a cute couple, I must say. Like, it's nice. Anyways.
He's my sweetie, yeah.
Yeah. So, I think that's one of the things that you have to understand if you're going to divide or understand what real and true freedom is. You have to understand that it's without the authority of others to do things to you that you don't consent to. Like, that's part of being a voluntarist, is you're recognizing that consent is the main issue, that a person, that's their right to consent to things, but that right really comes into effect when it's time to say no. Like, I can say yes to anything, and that's what they believe, is you have the right to obey.
Right.
That's the right to say yes. That's who cares? When it really comes down to it, it's the right to say no. That's where it really counts. So
it's not freedom without a safe word.
Okay.
And
yellow is going to be my safe word. Yellow.
Okay.
Yellow. Okay, so is that enough about the two counties, you think, or?
I mean, it just boils down to the whole idea that they're with the virtue signaling going on. We are for the Second Amendment,
right?
But they're not even touching on what the Second Amendment was about. They're not saying in Sevier County it's safe to overthrow the government.
Right. Oh, no. Because they are the government. They're the people that put the law in place. Right. So they wouldn't want you to overthrow them. But it's part of the cycle where, politicians, their job is to get reelected. Their job isn't really to do what's right for you. Their job is to get reelected. And so what they'll do is like our friend who thinks this is progress. Like, oh, look, it's progress. It's what I always say. It's the mental assent to the principles. It's not actually a principled stand, because if you talk to any of those people, they're going to tell you how President Trump has been so great. He's a president who said, forget about due process and take the guns. Like, if that were Obama, they would lose their minds.
Take the guns first and due process second.
Right. Like. I mean, that totally destroys everything that their constitution that they worship is about. So if they're willing to do that, to just ignore that tells you that they're disingenuous about the sanctuary cities or counties anyways.
Right.
Because that's who they should be. If, in my opinion, every Republican in the country Like, that's who you're supposed to keep in line as your own guy. If you're really principled, you're supposed to say, hey, that's not what we're about. We're about this. And you're saying something other than that. And I don't care who you are. That's a brave and principled stance. Not, well, it's our guy, so let's not say anything about it. You know, he's Trump 2020. He's going to MAGA. Like, all the maggots out there. Like, it's ridiculous. And I mean, you just get so tired of it after a while, especially when they think they're calling other people out for being exactly like that.
Yeah. Now, the one thing, I haven't seen the thin blue line Punisher on Sevier County cop cars, but they do have the stealth black with black writing.
Oh, yeah.
Cop cars.
You know what they're doing now? Just
what are they doing
when
now?
I take my son to work, they have like a decoy car at one of the off ramps.
Yeah.
To on the freeway, and then just a little ways up the road, they have one of the unmarked black cars sitting there, and this is Knox County, sitting there. So you think you've gotten past the one that's, you know, really highly visual, and then the second one is the one that gets you.
So as soon as you speed up.
Yeah, they're bastards. I mean, because they know what they're doing. And I'm thinking, because they don't have anything better to do, there are no actual crimes in Knox County right now anywhere for them to be dealing with. They need to be sitting there.
You know, funny you should say that cops are bastards. Because you were just telling me about a story.
Oh, y'all. This one is bad, too. And it's from Reason Magazine. And it's Florida cops went to absurd lengths to entrap man who showed no interest in underage sex.
Now, real quick, if you go to Reason and you just search for Florida cops, you get about 400 stories.
Right. You have to put up, you have to type in Florida cops went to absurd. And then that's the thing. That's how many cop stories are out there. This one is just about Florida, and you get all those stories. So, and this one was just posted yesterday or the day before. So it's not like it didn't come up on the first page.
Yeah, and the only reason why it's not as egregious as it could be is because the guy they were trying to entrap worked for them.
Well, one of them.
Right.
The other one murdered. He killed himself. He killed himself over it. So what happened is that these Sarasota County Sheriff's Office, there's a reporter there doing the Lord's work, as we say in Tennessee. Noah Pransky has been covering, he calls it Florida's addiction to entrapment for years. And so he's talking, so that's a beautiful statement. Like, that's really beautiful. So he's talking about the lengths that cops will go to get a win, because it's not about really protecting any kids. There are no kids. It's not like they're catching people that are sending kiddie porn back and forth to each other.
If you create the crime that you're arresting somebody for,
right,
then it's way easier because you don't have to do any actual police work.
Yeah. And not only are they creating the crime, the article is a really good one, and I'll put it in the show notes, and you guys should read it, because it tells you a lot about who the cops are. They're not concerned about real kids getting raped in this, or getting hurt, or predators that are out there. Actually, they're looking for the win. They're looking to say, look how many child predators we caught when they really didn't catch them. They entrapped them. So this one young man, and he goes to Tinder, and he's looking for an adult woman. He's looking for an age appropriate woman. He's not looking for a 14-year-old. And so they pose themselves as adult women. They this gentleman was 23, and they posed as an 18-year-old woman. Now, I don't think anybody would really think that's too inappropriate for an 18-year-old and a 23-year-old.
No, I mean, that's solidly that's not even sketchy.
Right, it's not sketchy. So as he's talking to this woman, they make a connection. They're talking back and forth, and it's only after they've already built this rapport and talked about a lot of their hobbies, and it never got sexual even up to this point, that the police officer on the other end, who this gentleman thinks is Stephanie, says, well, I'm really 14, and I've never had sex, but I really want to. And he says, don't believe the hype, it's not all it's cracked up to be. And then he steers it back to like a coffee table that he wants to buy. Yeah. Like he never, every time they try to get this guy to talk about sex or anything illicit with them, he steers it back. Like, he never goes there. He didn't take the bait. Now, if he was smart, he would have been done with that conversation right away.
Yeah, that's where you block.
Yeah, he should have, like, that's something I try to teach my son, and I think Daniel would too, is that, look, if she's underage, you just need to cut that stuff off, because the political landscape, the societal landscape is too fickle and unpredictable for you to even take the chance of talking with a girl that way.
And so
that's underage.
And so we've got the Florida cops going after fake predators that they're creating.
Mm-hmm.
But then we have Epstein and all the related people there. And as soon as they can run away from that story, story's gone.
They ditched it. Hard. And that was the whole, some people were saying that was the whole Area 51 thing, was just to cover up the Epstein
It's got to be why it got so much attention anyway. They may not have created that story.
Right. But
I'm guessing some goofy nerd came up with the story.
Yeah.
But the fact that all the news media went hard on that and just ignored the Epstein story, and then it was just like, oh, he killed himself, done.
Right. And that's the thing. If it were real journalism, they would be on that like a pit bull. Like, wait a second, this is corruption at the highest levels of the most powerful people in the country and the world. Like, that would be any real reporter's dream scenario.
The Panama Papers at least had a couple of media sources covering it.
Yeah.
Not a lot, but a couple.
And what happened to that brave reporter?
Oh, he killed himself.
No, she was blown up in a car. Wasn't it a woman? And she got car bombed?
I remember the reporter died under perfectly legitimate and understandable
Well, it was a bomb in her car.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a daily life risk.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so these things, I mean, it sounds like conspiracy if it's the first time maybe you're ever delving into this. And I'm not big on most conspiracies because people make a lot of jumps in logic. Like, I can't, the horizon looks flat, therefore the earth is flat, and you're just in denial. Yeah, that's too much of a jump. But these things, once you start seeing how they're all connected, because the Panama Papers were connected in that whole...
Yeah. Well, so one thing you do have to agree, though, is that all birds are government spies.
Absolutely. All birds are government drones, yes. Yep. Absolutely. That one's true, too. So the pieces are there. All you have to do is put them together. And then I watched a documentary on this, and they had even... like prosecutors, these are state agents, people who work within the state in Florida, saying, I have never seen the prosecution act in the manner they acted in this case. I have never seen them send briefs over for the approval of the defense. Like, they were sending things over to get it approved by them, and then they would present it in court.
Yeah.
These are people who have no reason to tell the truth about this. Honestly, they have no reason to want to come out and be honest about it, because it's going to be bad on their careers. And I think the people who were talking about it were retired now, and that's the only way they can get away with it. But even then, I would still be kind of scared if I were them to...
Yeah. Well, I mean, so it all depends on who stands to lose as to how risky it is.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much to it. So many of these people, and we think about like Julian Assange and the stuff going on with him.
Horrible.
It is horrible. And I posted the article the other day where he broke down in tears in court because, look, the man has been under psychological torture. Someone who actually went in to, because they love to have their, what they call oversight. And
I mean, you can't trust him because it was the UN doctors.
Right. But even they came out and said he's been psychologically tortured. Yeah. That's the thing. Like, even their own people have said there's something going on here. So when you have them confirming something, like, and one of the comments that I got on that article was, I'm not going to shed any tears or get my panties in a bunch over Assange because he knew what he was getting into. Well, yes. It's one thing to say, I know what I'm getting into. I'm sure that I too would go, hopefully, if I had information like that, would go, yes, I would release it too. It's a whole other thing to actually live under the kind of pressure they can bring to bear. I don't think anybody, until they've gone through it, understands exactly what they can do to you. And it's not just you. It's everyone you love and everyone you've known. And rape. accusing you of rape when they can't get anything else on you to try and discredit you. I mean, that's a terrible...
We don't have a reason to hold Assange. So Sweden is going to charge him with rape. And, it later comes out that was all made up. But, that wasn't enough for England to drop the charges because the U.S. had a request in. Yeah. So, so far, there's still not a legitimate reason for extradition.
Right.
Assange was not in the U.S. When he was publishing this stuff. So it was just reporting.
Right.
He wasn't violating any laws that covered his jurisdiction.
Right. And Daniel doesn't mean to say that the laws are legitimate. That's not what we're saying here. The laws are still bullshit. Because if there's wrongdoing, that should be able to be exposed.
I'm not talking about what's right.
Right, but you're talking about what's
them
legal.
Playing by their own rules.
Right, and they don't.
Assange didn't do anything wrong. I mean, he did the world a favor. Were there negative consequences to some of the WikiLeaks publications? Ostensibly. But...
whose fault are they?
Right.
They're not Assange's.
That people in the espionage business were put at risk, or people in the war business were put at risk as a result of publications, of documents in the tens of thousands of documents. Some of them put people at risk. Well, maybe those documents, maybe they shouldn't have been putting people at risk. Maybe they shouldn't have been doing bad things.
Right. It's like when, people get outraged, and they should be, when someone breaks into your house and they hurt themselves and then they sue you. Right. That's been something that's happened before. And that's exactly the same thing. It's like saying, well, we were doing the wrong thing, but you exposed us. Therefore, you're wrong, because these people's lives are already, if they're spies, their lives are already at risk.
You're not trying to draw a comparison between the United States government and criminals.
I would never do such a thing.
I didn't think so. Okay, we can keep going.
Never, ever. Yeah, that's all they are, is a bunch of criminals, as we know. And so this is the thing. Where are the people standing up about that in the United States government?
Oh, in the government. Okay. I don't know.
Not very many people. I don't even know if...
I mean, if you stand up against it inside the United States government, you end up railroaded out of a career.
You end up getting Clinton, right?
Well,
or Epstein.
So the first two people that did what Snowden did tried to do it the right way, and they did it through the whistleblower statutes and all that, and they all lost their careers and they've never been able to work again.
Right, and then people totally dismiss them too. You have to get it out there. The proper channels are there for a reason, and it's there to protect them. This goes back to something else. You see these things and they repeat themselves. In the laws governing how you report unethical or assault, sexual assault in Congress, is you have to go to a person in a private committee in Congress. Right. And they keep it quiet. They protect their own. These women, we covered stories about that on the radio, where they were shut down and told basically you have no rights here. You have to sign this, and you have to mediate it, and you have to mediate it through us, and you can't talk about it after.
Well, and in the military, if you're going to report somebody in your chain of command for wrongdoing, you have to report them to your chain of command.
Right. Which, hello? I mean, yeah, there's so much wrong, but these are the way bureaucracies are set up in order to protect the bureaucracy. If you're the one making the rules, you're not going to make rules that go against you. No matter what they give lip service to, no matter how many committees and how many hearings before Congress they have, it's all BS. I guarantee you, if women were being entrapped like men are in Sarasota like this, there would be a trial before Congress or something. But there's not, because they're doing it to men and they think men are expendable.
Well, I mean,
it's kind of a side note, but
it's they only pay lip service to the idea that it's illegal for women to have sex with underage men anyway.
Oh yes, absolutely. When teachers have sex, and that's part of what gets me in, when I've talked to my friends about that kind of thing, a female teacher having sex with, an underage boy, one of her students. My guy friends will say, oh, good for him, hubba hubba, wink wink, way to go, kid. And really, I think they're missing the point. And the point is that as far as law goes, it has to apply both ways. And that it's not okay to say that every man who has sex with one of his students is a predator, but every woman who has sex with their students is not. Like, that's not right. They're both predators, because that's not what people send their kids to school for.
Right.
They send them to school to get indoctrinated. That's what they send them for, not to get indoctrinated to have sex with their teachers.
Right.
But I digress. So,
well, I mean, you know, the name of the show could very well be Sherry Voluntary, I digress.
It's my new subtitle. That's the best subtitle yet. Or Sherry Voluntary. Let's talk about cops. and that's part of the reason that the things with cops. I mean, I know it's kind of a running joke, but it's not, because I hate abuse of power. I hate it. I cannot stand it when people who are put up on a pedestal as some kind of virtuous, member of society, and yet they're given all the power and authority to abuse people, innocent people who aren't doing anything. I think that we should all be up in arms about that. Anybody who cares about what's actually right should be up in arms about that, no matter what they call themselves. But they're not, because, they take this side that, cops are good guys, and therefore they have to make all cops good guys, or their whole system falls apart. Like, it just starts... If the cops aren't an authority over you, then who is?
Yeah, they don't believe their own BS, because when they say the thin blue line exists, when they talk about the thin blue line, they're doing it to protect, the bad cops. If they believed that there were good cops and bad cops, then they would not protect the bad ones. They would prosecute them.
Right, and they don't.
They wouldn't get 8 hours of vacation taken away from them as a penalty for
pushing a guy off a roof.
Yeah, for killing someone.
Yeah. I don't think it killed him,
or attempted murder. Attempted murder got the... Sorry, folks. Technical glitch.
I'm the technical glitch, as usual.
No comment.
Did they still hear us, or do we need to...
No, so right about the time I said that, it was when it jumped.
Okay, go ahead and say it again.
I don't remember what I was saying.
That they get off with... attempted murder.
The cop that pushed a guy off a building got a day's vacation. He lost a day's vacation.
8 hours, yeah. And he was able to choose. Like, they said, you have to do 8 hours. He took one of his vacation days off. Like, it's no skin off his back. He pushed another human off a building. He didn't have to
miss a day's work. He just lost a vacation day. So he lost 8 hours of pay.
Right. But he'll get it back when he has to work that vacation day, too.
Right. Yeah, he just has one fewer vacation day to take.
And this is you want to talk to people, and yet all they can scream is, you just hate cops. They never want to address this kind of thing. Well, that's just an an unusual circumstance, but it's not. That's the problem. It's not. It's a systemic problem, and it's got to be addressed, and it's not going to be addressed by just going, there's a war on cops, and there's not. There's not. The war is that cops are fighting that against people, because we're all their enemy. When they walk down the street, they see you as an enemy.
So, I'll grant them on some level that there is potentially a war on cops. Except that it's not a shooting war, because it's way more dangerous to be in an encounter with a cop than it is to be a cop in an encounter. But I will grant them that cops are very unpopular right now, and it's entirely their own doing.
Right. Exactly. That's what I always tell people, like, they do the best job of publicizing our point of view than we could ever do. Like, we can point it out to you, but they're out there living this stuff every day and doing this stuff. I mean, Raylene on Pete's show that we were just on together, she talked about an article, and I have it here somewhere, where they forced parents to hold down a little child while they did a vaginal exam of them in, like, the front yard. In the cruiser. It is horrible. And it was over someone had just called and said something's going on. Like, these parents weren't found guilty of anything. Nothing like that. They were just like, she had been to, like, a Chuck E. Cheese type place and gotten a scratch in her genital area. But it was like, they called the doctor about it. And the doctor was like, well, bring her in on Monday, whatever. And she was at school and told the teacher. And the teacher called CPS. And not knowing any of the stuff, even when the parents are like, we've called the doctor, we've taken care of it. They're going to do what they're going to do, damn it, because they love your kids more than you, and they want you to know it. When they do these weird flexes, it's so that not only you, but your neighbors and all your friends will know we own your ass and we own your kids and we will do whatever the hell we want to them because we're the government and we're here to help. We're going to protect your kids. And yet there's kids, that are actually suffering in foster care and being abused. I mean, I had, 4 aunts and uncles raised in foster care. Yeah. 5.
Hey, why don't we make this its own show and
okay.
wrap this one up?
All right.
Because I know you can go on for another 2 hours.
I know I could. Yeah, don't get me started on foster care. Yeah, so I guess that's it then.
Hey, what's going on with postcards? Is that still a show?
Yeah. Every Monday night at 9 Eastern, 8 Central. You can hear me and Alan. And me and Alan.
Does Alan still do anything?
Yeah, Alan does the Gold Standard with Alan Mosley. And
he does that other show with that Godarchy guy.
Yeah. He does Sports Ball with Mike Maharrey. So, and of course, Godarchy is like the best Christian anarchist show you will ever listen to.
And by far the top performer at Little L.
Oh, well.
I mean, everybody likes
Thank
Mike
you
Maharrey.
for pulling back the curtain there, Daniel.
But the one thing I'll say is that the best show on the network is Mike and Friends.
Oh, Mike and Friends, yeah.
That show is, that's my favorite podcast.
Right, it's like real talent. Like when you see Michael Jordan for the first time, like dunk, like it's like that. Like it's like, wow, I didn't know a libertarian podcast could be like this.
Right, exactly.
It's magic. It's pure magic.
And I'm just waiting for that to get picked up by Fox Business News.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised. All right, guys. Well, that's it for us for this time. And maybe next time we'll have Kyle Mann from the Babylon Bee. If not, then we'll have somebody else. Peace.
Bye, folks.